Look at the wall nearest to you. Smooth, flat, painted in whatever color whoever was here last decided on. You've almost certainly never thought about what it's made of. It's made of rock. Not stone, not concrete. A soft, chalky mineral called gypsum that you could scratch with a fingernail in its natural form. That mineral was pulled from the ground, heated, dissolved in water, spread between two sheets of paper, dried into a rigid panel, and installed in the room you're sitting in right now. Every wall in most modern homes and offices follows that same journey. The material looks finished and permanent. The real reason it feels that way is one of the more understated transformations in everyday construction. A soft mineral becomes a hard surface, and the process is stranger and more deliberate than the plain white panel would ever suggest. Let's get into it, right here on Small Things. Rock, paper, and a little water. At its core, drywall is a sandwich. A layer of mineral paste pressed between two sheets of paper, dried into a rigid panel, and cut to size. The mineral is gypsum, a naturally occurring sulfate found in rock deposits on every continent. In its raw form, it's soft and unremarkable. It has one property, though, that makes it exceptionally useful. Gypsum naturally contains water locked inside its crystal structure. Not surface moisture, but chemically bound water held within the mineral itself. That water can be partially removed by heating, transforming the mineral into a fine, dry powder. Add water back, and the powder sets into a solid. This ability to move between powder and solid by adding or removing water is the chemical trick that makes drywall possible. Before the wall was a panel. It didn't begin with flat panels and roll-on paint. It began with wet plaster, applied by hand one wall at a time. For most of human history, interior walls were finished using plaster, a mixture of lime, sand, and water troweled onto masonry or a wooden lathe in multiple coats and left to cure over days. Skilled plasterers were in high demand. The work was slow, and producing a smooth, finished wall required experience that took years to develop. In an age of hand-built construction, that was an accepted part of the process. The Industrial Revolution did not immediately change that. Even as buildings grew taller and factories expanded, the interior wall remained a tradesperson's job. What changed the equation was speed. As cities grew rapidly in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the demand for housing and commercial space began to outpace the number of skilled plasterers available to finish it. Builders needed a faster, cheaper, and less skill-dependent method of producing smooth interior surfaces. Gypsum board had been in early commercial development since the 1890s, but the product that truly established drywall as a standard building material was introduced by the United States Gypsum Company in 1916. Their product, originally marketed as sacket board and later as sheetrock, sandwiched gypsum plaster between layers of paper. The idea was not to replace plastering with a superior product, but to offer a prefabricated alternative that workers with less specialist training could install quickly. Adoption was slow. Plasterers resisted it. Building codes did not initially accommodate it. Many builders considered it an inferior substitute for the real thing. The material found its moment during World War II. when the urgent need to construct military housing and facilities at unprecedented speed forced builders to use every available shortcut. Drywall was fast, it was cheap, and it was good enough. By the time the post-war housing boom arrived, the conversation had moved on entirely. Vast suburbs of new homes were going up across the United States and elsewhere, built on the assumption that drywall was how interior walls were made. The skilled plasterer did not disappear, but the wall they once built by hand had become a factory-made panel. What had taken days of labor and specialist knowledge had been compressed into a manufacturing process and a crew with a screw gun. The shift was quiet, practical, and almost total. How soft rock becomes a wall. So what actually happens between a lump of gypsum in the ground and a flat wall in a room? The process begins with mining and an act of controlled dehydration. Gypsum rock is crushed and fed into large rotary kilns, heated to around 175 degrees Celsius. Inside those kilns, the heat drives off roughly 3/4 of the water locked inside the mineral's crystal structure. What comes out is a dry, fine powder that builders have always called plaster of Paris. The name comes from the rich gypsum deposits historically found in the Montmartre area of Paris, where the material was used in construction for centuries. The powder is mixed with water and additives, starch for bonding, foaming agents to control density, fibers for strength, to form a thick, uniform slurry. The mineral is now doing something that seems contradictory. It was dehydrated to become powder. Now it is being rehydrated so it can set back into a solid. The same properties that allowed the water out is what will lock the material into a rigid crystalline structure as it dries. That slurry is poured onto a continuous moving sheet of paper. A second sheet is laid over the top. Rollers press the layers together, setting the panel's thickness. The panels are cut to standard dimensions and fed into long industrial drying ovens. The drying process drives out the remaining free moisture, locking the gypsum crystals into the interlocking structure that gives the finished panel its rigidity. What comes out of the oven is the panel you recognize, flat, slightly chalky on the back, smooth on the face. The paper on both sides is not decorative. The paper is structural. Gypsum, on its own, is brittle. The paper holds the panel together, gives it tensile strength, and provides the surface that paint will adhere to. Without it, the core would crumble at the edges. The material that came out of the ground goes back into the process rather than to waste. Panels that fail inspection are broken down and the gypsum reclaimed. It's not just a flat whiteboard. The most common assumption people make about drywall is that it is essentially all the same, that the panel in a bedroom wall is the same product as the one behind bathroom tiles or inside a fire-rated corridor. That assumption underestimates what the manufacturing process can be asked to do. Standard drywall is designed for dry interior spaces where the main requirements are smooth finish and reasonable strength. But gypsum's properties can be adjusted significantly by changing what's added to the slurry before the panels are formed. The same basic recipe produces materials with very different behavior in use. Moisture-resistant drywall includes additives that reduce water absorption, making it suitable for kitchens, bathrooms, and humid spaces where standard drywall would soften, swell, and eventually fail. For areas that will be tiled directly, a cement board variant using fiber mesh rather than paper facing is used instead. Fire-resistant drywall contains glass fibers embedded in the gypsum core. When exposed to heat, gypsum releases its chemically bound water as steam, which absorbs heat energy and slows the spread of fire through a wall cavity. The glass fibers hold the core together as it releases that water, maintaining the fire barrier for longer. Type X drywall, the most common fire-rated variety, can resist fire penetration for up to an hour under standardized test conditions. These are not cosmetic variations, they're engineered responses to specific failure modes built in at the slurry stage and invisible in the finished surface. The material behind everything. Today, you will find drywall in almost every building constructed in the past 70 years, doing its work invisibly behind paint and wallpaper and trim. A single detached house typically contains between 200 and 300 individual drywall panels. The global drywall market produces billions of square meters of panel every year, manufactured on every inhabited continent to supply a construction industry that has built itself entirely around the assumption of its availability. Without it, the speed and cost at which modern homes and commercial spaces are built would not be possible. The material's environmental profile is more nuanced than its cheap and disposable reputation suggests. The paper facing is made partly or entirely from recycled fiber. In many manufacturing facilities, the gypsum itself is sourced partly from synthetic deposits, a byproduct of the desulfurization process at coal-fired power plants, where sulfur dioxide emissions are chemically captured and converted into calcium sulfate, chemically identical to mined gypsum. This diverts a significant industrial byproduct from landfill and turns it into something useful. At the end of a building's life, drywall can be recycled. Crushed panels re-enter the gypsum supply chain, with the paper separated and recycled independently. The challenge is logistics. Building demolition is messy, and sorting drywall cleanly from other construction waste requires infrastructure and investment that is not yet universal. The material is recyclable in principle. The practice depends on whether the systems exist to make it happen. Quiet engineering in plain sight. So how does soft rock become the wall around you? By losing its water, becoming powder, being mixed back into liquid, trapped between paper, dried into a solid, and cut to exactly the shape the room needs. Every step in that process is reversible or adjustable. The same mineral can be made fire-resistant, moisture-resistant, or flexible for curved walls by changing what goes into the slurry. The same basic panel has been produced in essentially the same way for over a century. A plain wall is not just empty background. It's soft rock, paper, water, heat, and engineering quietly shaping the rooms we live in. The surface that looks like nothing was made from something that went through more than you would expect to get there. If this changed the way you look at the walls around you, let us know in the comments what you want us to explore next. We might make it our next episode. Thanks for watching. History often hides in the smallest details.